When we come back from the Formula One summer break, we all should be focused on the middle of the field. As we all know, the front of the field really feels locked up when it comes to both the Drivers' Championship and the Constructors' Championship. McLaren has such an insane lead, and both of the McLaren drivers have such a large lead on the rest of the field that it's definitely going to either Lando or Oscar. But one of the things that's important to understand about Formula One is that it's not all just about first place. Every Constructors' Championship place is worth millions of dollars to that team for next year. And so that's why we see a lot of conversation about the best of the rest. What we're talking about there is the teams that are really in the midfield and how far up they can go kind of outside of that top four. At the beginning of the season, it really felt like Williams had a lock on that fifth position. But as the season has progressed, we've also seen their performance overall decline. And something that they weren't necessarily expecting was that two other teams would steadily see their performance incline. Both Aston Martin and Sauber have had a very strong run these last few races. And so heading into the summer break, Williams has 70 points overall, and that is only a 22-point lead on their next closest competitor, Aston Martin, and a 23-point lead on Sauber. If we look at the way some of this happened, of course we know that Williams had a stretch of time where they were not only not scoring points, but not finishing the race at all. After we've gotten out of that stretch and the car has become a little bit more reliable, we're still seeing races where they're not necessarily beating these other two teams. At the last race in Hungary, both Alex and Carlos went home with 0 points. But at the same time, both Aston Martin drivers, Fernando and Lance, finished in the points. And Gabriel Bortoleto split those drivers with his highest finish yet in 6th. And of course, there are a couple of other key moments, like Nico Hülkenberg taking his very first podium and the only podium that any of these teams have at Silverstone. Gabriel Bortoleto himself has had a very strong increasing performance with 3 points finishes in the last 4 races. The only race that he didn't score points in was Silverstone. And so with the performance that we're seeing from both the Aston Martin and the Sauber, I actually think we're going to end up seeing a really strong battle for 5th, 6th, and 7th. And the ending of that battle is going to be a huge difference for those teams in terms of monetary value. The question is really going to be, can Williams come back from summer break and really start to show what they showed at the beginning of the season? Or will Aston Martin and Sauber continue this sort of meteoric rise that they're both having? The most interesting thing about these 3 teams and the performance level that we're seeing from them is that all 3 teams are moving towards a complete reinvention of who we see them as. Williams obviously entered into a new era this year with Carlos Sainz moving over, and we know that James Vowles has had this sort of long-term plan to revitalize the team, which we started to see the effects of at the beginning of this season. But then looking at Aston Martin, we also have them making a new change next year. Not only do they have Adrian Newey, who they've brought over from Red Bull, but they're also bringing over Honda as their power unit supplier, which will be a change as well. Of course, with Sauber, they are preparing to turn over into Audi. As we come back from summer break, which of these 3 teams do you see kind of taking over that fight? And where do you see these teams landing 5th, 6th, and 7th by the end of the season?